code. I think there's all sorts of ways to join. Well, I don't know. I actually don't know who join. But if you search Womanhood Code, they have a link. It's up on their site, etc.
Right. Got it. Yeah, definitely post up the link later so I can add it to the notes as well.
Yep.
All right, cool. Can you guys see my screen now? Is it coming through? No, I'm not. Okay, good. All right, yeah. So that was the thing. It was a very interesting project that George and I worked on all those years ago in 2010. And I remember we were like spanning across. I think it was like 5 different time zones. We had like 2 or 3 time zones in the U.S. because we had part of the team in a Houston office. We had George in New Orleans. We had some folks in Austin, and I don't remember where else in the U.S.
Time zone.
What was that?
All of those are the same time zone.
Yes, but I'm not finished, my friend. We had people in Brazil, we had people in Austria, and we had people in India. So not only were we going across a bunch of time zones, but also different cultures, which adds to the mix, right? Because the way people perceive certain things that we have to do, it's different, right? And sometimes we assume, oh yeah, I said things in this way, and everybody else is on the same page. Not necessarily, right? So trying to establish a practice so that we could work together was very important. And that's why, George and I put this thing together. It's like, well, it seems like we have something good here that we should absolutely share with people. And that's why I brought up that, we should definitely bring this back up now, since there's a lot of people, of course, working remotely. And to me, it's kind of interesting when I hear people say, well, how can we make this work? And it's like, well, we've been doing this for so many years. So I kind of like took it for granted that people just knew how to work like that, but apparently not. Right? So I said I thought it was going to be a disservice for us, if from us, if we were just sitting in this content somewhere in Dropbox or whatever, and we didn't share that with people, right? So that's why I decided to, ping George and bring this back up. So George, you want to just quickly go through the agenda and touch on?
Lord, So again, for those who are joining most recently, this is a presentation we did like 10 years ago. We're just revisiting and seeing how it fits in with the modern world. And by all means, turn on your microphone and talk during it, because I barely remember giving this talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I don't want to read directly off the screen. Look, we're basically we want to talk about how remote working is hard,
right,
and how it doesn't have to be quite as hard.
Right.
And there's tools for it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And this was like it was really, like I was mentioning, it was a distributed team, because one thing is like having everybody in the same office. Another thing is have every single person remote. And in this case, we had a mix of everything. We had a couple of people in one office, a couple more people in another office, a couple more people across the pond, the pond. And
I think this was EPS's first experience with really having a remote team where people weren't just we're working in their time zone on their own project and then integrating at the end, right?
Well, no, we had at least one other project that I remember before this one that had similar type of challenges. So it was not the first one, but it was like right around the same time.
Okay.
All right. So what comes up next? Yeah. So those were some of the concerns we identified at the time. Do those still stay true? Right. I think they absolutely do, right? Stay informed, what's going on with the project, with the people, with the business, personality issues. If it's already, challenging to deal with personality issues when you're facing people and you can see body language and all that, it's even harder doing it remotely, right? So you need to figure some things out around that. You know, toe stepping is another thing. Getting feedback on the work that you are doing, or giving feedback on the work that others are doing. Integrating work is a huge thing, and we are going to definitely spend some time talking that when the bullet point comes back up. And of course, dispersing the knowledge. So stay informed. Want to talk about a little bit about that one, George?
I mean, again, these are the first time seeing these in 10 years.
Right?
Yeah, no, screw it. We'll wing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, so certainly it's important to have a task tracking system, which I mean, like, we're mostly all doing that now. I think that's been such a big win that even teams that aren't remote are doing that, right? Yeah. Tasks, the tasks on a whiteboard, we're all on Jira or Asana or Trello or something else that we all hate, but it's better than any of the other things.
Right.
Like pretty much everyone's attitude is, this is terrible, but it's better than anything else, except for TFS, where people just kind of grumble. Teleconferencing, screen sharing, being able to have that telepresence is really important. Man, I cannot wait to get to kind of the next step. I'm really kind of bummed to hear that I would have expected, especially with everyone going online with COVID, to be hearing a lot more about telepresence, and just I haven't been, and I cannot wait till get to that point.
Right.
And then scrums to keep everyone up to date, because realistically, even if you have video calls, you're usually just doing them for specific things. And just being able to look at the same code is really important.
Yeah, it's sorry to jump in. I just remember something. I've mentioned India, but I don't think on this team when we worked together we had folks in India, did we?
I don't remember, and we might not have.
Yeah. I think it was the other project. What was that?
I had worked with people from India before that, but
yeah. So what I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting things back in my mind now. Before this project we were on, there was one that we had people in Mountain Time, we had people in India, which was an interesting challenge because we would do our daily stand-ups in the morning as we were starting out our day, whereas the folks in India were just like ending their day, right? So it was like this almost around the clock. So there was, at any point in time, there was somebody working on the project because of the time zones. So, for the guys in India, instead of saying, what you're going to be working on today and so on, it was flipped. It was an interesting kind of dynamic, but, you make it work somehow.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah, and pairing in a code review, that is such an essential thing. This one, it was last week. I was chatting with a friend and coworker who works at a different client, and he was sharing with me how his team was happy with the results of the last sprint. It was a very productive sprint. I asked him, okay, what made it productive? What made it a success? And he immediately said pair programming, right? Now, don't take that as the pair programming where you have two people sitting at the same computer the whole day. No, it was like, okay, we need to get together right now on this specific task, right? And George, we're going to be talking more about that because we've done that in the past, but he was essentially describing the things that we were talking about 10 years ago, right? When needed, don't keep spinning your wheels for 2 hours. Just pair up with somebody, get it over with, and then keep on moving. And when I heard that, I'm like, that is so relevant still, right?
Yep.
Cool. Personality issues. What do you remember from this one, man?
Man, look. This is programming. People have big egos. It's easier to have an ego about stuff when people aren't around you all the time with a constant reminder of that everyone else is also good. and everyone else is also a person.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really easy to start treating people as words on a screen. It's super easy, and you gotta just be checking yourself all the time. It's just super important.
Yeah. I remember at the time, at least, what, four of the team members that we had, we all knew each other from participating on the brown bag. So that helped us a lot already, right? Because we sort of like knew each other's approaches to problem solving and the kind of skills each other had. So when we came together as a team, I think that helped quite a bit. I mean, I feel like we were very comfortable sharing stuff with each other without like the fear of judgment, like, oh, you're doing it wrong. It's like, oh man, that's cool, but hey, check this out. There's a slightly better way to do that, or a different way. It may be better or not. I think it was more collaborative that way, don't you?
Yeah. Yep. That was audio.
Cool.
Audio.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I see beer there. I do remember specifically that you would come by not every sprint planning, but like I think it was like maybe every other sprint
It
planning.
was once a week. It was once a month. It was too
Right.
much because we had like that time when I had to, where me, myself, and Alan Stevens had to be there for like
Right.
a month and a half.
Yeah, and I remember it's at one point it overlapped where you guys were here and Milton was here also from Brazil. So we would just get together at a pub. Alan would bring his acoustic guitar. We would play some tunes, drink some beer, just socialize, and those were great.
Yeah, being able together is important. I mean, it's hard. I mean, first of all, it's hard now. I do think, and I'm curious. I wonder if anyone will open their microphone and speak up for this
Right.
now. Now, at this point, for pretty much 10 years, I've been working remotely in a way where that's not really possible because people just don't gather so much. So either, obviously now people can't gather at all, but even previously, I was at a company which was all remote and had like 200 plus developers. So you could do like regional get-togethers, but you couldn't realistically do a get-together of the dev team. Has anyone had any like virtual solutions to that you feel like worked really well?
All right, the guys on the call. I mean, I have something to add to that, but I definitely do want to encourage other folks on the call to, just jump in and help what's going on.
Yeah.
I thought improving Thursdays. I went to one of those that was online. That was a group of people getting together and drinking and talking. That was pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's one of the things that's, in presence, we've had at Improving for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Every month we have a Thursdays event where we get together, after work, have some beer, play some pool, just catch up with everybody. Of course, now we cannot do that, so it's right. So we just get on Microsoft Teams, get on the cameras, grab whatever favorite drink of choice, and just chat. We've been trying to do that even more often during these times where we get together like one night to play some sort of online game. Everybody together, some kind of fun game that's engaging. This week on Tuesday on our lunch break, we had a show and tell where everybody would spend like a minute or two showing whatever the heck they wanted from their like work from home environment. So like I shared my home office, which also has my musical instruments and my collectibles, a bunch of Batman stuff, and my motorcycles in the garage. So just we cannot be together, but we can still like see what makes the others tick, what kind of passions the others have, and create a bond like that somehow. So it's doable. It's different. You just have to try it.
I will. So one of the things that I've had. So I've been working largely, even in this large organization I work, most of the people would be contractors. Right?
Yeah.
So we're doing as subcontractors. In that case, you get an extra level of difficulty because you really can't like legally pay them to just hang.
Yes.
Which means people aren't going to do it. So there's a couple strategies I found, and none of them are 100% because getting people to engage on the internet is hard.
Yes.
Having a separate Slack that's not owned by work,
right,
is an interesting is an idea, and I mean like, so it gives people to the chance to kind of network outside of work, something that they're pretty sure is going to last beyond their employment with these particular people.
Right.
But also, I mean, and I mean, like, it of course ends up being like, you have a politics channel there and you're like, holy man, all these people are crazy. But I mean, if that's the sort of thing you can handle, like having those kind of crazy discussions, it's also a good bonding experience. So yeah, I think that's kind of an important thing, that the business shouldn't try to control everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I do agree.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what's next. Oh yeah, the toe stepping thing. And designed by contract. That I know that was something we used to do a lot there, and that is something that I continue doing through this last decade. That's been a huge part of the way I do work, which is get together with folks in the team, whoever is like closest to the user stories that you're working on, figure out a contract of communication between the different parts of the features, the different stories. What are the dependencies? Like, identify those, define a contract.
Don't you feel like the industry's kind of, I mean, it has been solving these issues reasonably well? Like, for example, like, branch per feature and having like code reviews and stuff like that, having Scrum meetings, that's become pretty standard by now. And I think that's good, but yeah, like at this point, it's almost second nature. I don't have lots of projects where people don't expect that.
You'd be surprised.
Maybe, yeah, maybe luck of the draw. I've had like 4 or 5 companies. Yeah,
you'd be surprised. You still run into some situations where we tend to take it for granted because we've been doing it for a long time. But if you jump between teams and organizations and things, you can see like how vastly different some corporations actually run their stuff. All right, so yeah, that is that. Getting feedback, the pairing, the design discussions, the code reviews, and how you approach code reviews. That's something I actually did a whole talk on how I've been approaching code review from the standpoint of, not making it like a blame game type of thing or a way to point and say, man, you're doing this all wrong. It's more like, no, let's do a code review so that we can learn from each other, understand, maybe there are things that, person X does not do quite well and you do really well. That's you find the opportunity to actually coach that person, right, and raise that person's abilities based on something that well, just share that with the other person, as opposed to say, oh, you're doing this all wrong. No, it's like, oh, thanks for implementing that. Now let's see how we can improve on that. All right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there is an article called Code Review, like it's actually 2 articles called Code Review Like a Human.
Okay.
So article series is really great in like talking about like code review and the things you have to kind of think about when doing. I mean, I don't remember if they use the term empathy, but that's what they're talking about. Essentially.
If you can send me a link to that would be great.
Yeah, and I mean, like there is a lot of concern and stuff. Like you have to mind kind of the power dynamic between the. I don't love using terms like that. But I mean, but that's what it is. Like when you're a senior developer talking about a junior developer, they are going to defer to you. There is a power dynamic,
Right.
and you do have to mind that because like maybe sometimes it's worth letting something go
Okay.
because you get law because on the alternative is you're going to grind this poor kid down. They're just going to get complete like paralysis about any future work.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to be making these trade-offs, like you thinking about these trade-offs, like, all right, this isn't like the worst error. It's not a security error. It's not anything. Maybe let it go.
Right.
Styling issues. Oh my God, styling issues are a big thing for that too.
Yeah, and something that I've been doing a lot is, and I've made a point to do it, is many times when I ask other developers to do a code review, I try to make a point to ask maybe junior developers to do a code review of my stuff, in the sense that I'm not necessarily
Yeah,
expecting
that
the
feels
person
good.
to catch. What was that?
I said, yeah, that feels good. Like, wow.
Well, the idea of having that person looking over the code and help me identify the parts of the code that that person does not understand, because that can tell me two things. One is, am I trying to use the language features in a too smart of a way that only advanced developers will understand, or is it that that person just doesn't know some core features of the language, the framework, whatever that be. And again, it gives me uh, opportunities to coach that person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
As well, like if I'm building something that is to be reused by the team, well, I have to make sure that it's actually understandable. So to get somebody like maybe who's a junior type of developer, it helps both ways. It keeps myself on my toes and it helps that other person grow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's
I
been
mean,
successful.
yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out. Like I always say, code reviews are an opportunity for conversation. That's
Yes.
really, really important.
Yeah, and that's thanks for bringing that up, because I was going to mention that I'm not too big of a fan of the whole, oh, I just create a pull request. Can anybody review that? I hate that async type of stuff. I like sitting together with somebody and say, okay, can we go through these changes and can we talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think this experience is way better. You're way more likely to be reviewing what's really necessary as opposed to, oh, you forgot a null check here. Well, that does not tell me a whole lot. Now, if you tell me, well, it's important to check for null there because the situation where you may get a null is when you don't find an order in the database, or there's some sort of business reason attached to the why you may have a null in there. So this kind of conversation, I think it's more valuable than just pointing out to these things that like a static analysis tool could catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's up next? Let's see. Oh, integrating work. I remember that one. I remember some things very specific. What about you?
Integrating work,
Yeah.
man. No, automation or automated tests. I will say I find automated tests to be less important now.
Okay.
They can help a lot,
Okay.
but the more people are used to these issues, I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down and grinding through stuff. And, we have kind of started developing this ethos now of like, you really shouldn't, be doing work. How do I put this? We started developing this ethos now, like you should do work in small units and always keep in mind who you're integrating with that. I do find that that does help,
Yeah.
and it's people find that easier than learning how to unit test properly.
Oh,
And unit test is only part of it because integration test is a whole other thing. And
yeah.
then tests, and and it's so rare for people to bother to set up all the infrastructure to do that correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
You
don't
know,
know.
I remember specifically like a teams having trouble with the whole, different developers would work on user stories that could be related, dependent, or whatever, and they wouldn't pair during the sprint. And by the end of the sprint, everybody working on their own branches, and then it came time to integrate. All hell broke loose. And at the time, it was when TFS just came out with their beautiful source control system that was that thing that you probably remember. But I remember, like the two of us having some very specific, great experiences with that, where at the beginning of the sprint, we would pull the user stories that we would be pairing on. I remember there were a couple of stories where I was focused on the UI part of it. You were focused on the backend part of it. So we paired for a couple of hours to figure out the design. We identified the contracts, what things I'm going to be asking you for, what I'm going to send you, and then what you are sending me back. We would at times even write the test cases, like write the initial unit test, just the placeholders for the test cases that we were accounting for. Then we would split. We would go work on our own on the individual tasks. And then a couple of days later, we would just get together and integrate. And at time, as we remember, there was this one time when we had like a boatload of changes. I mean, you and I, we had like individually made several changes, and we were like, oh boy, how hard is it going to be to integrate now? And it was like that. We integrated the branches, we hit at 5 in Visual Studio, and bam, it worked. Neither one of us thought that it was going to work just like that, but it did, right? Just from the practice. Right, the pairing, the identifying the test cases before writing the code. Whether you're doing TDD, unit tests, that was not the point.
But you know what? I feel like that's almost less about patterns and practices than it is about just people working together, getting to know each other and how they work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think to me, and and ever since, I keep doing and following those kind of practices, putting people first. So, whenever I'm like doing a code review, I don't tell people, hey, instead of doing this, you should be doing that. No, I focus on, think about on the why you should be doing certain things, right? Which makes, over time you coach and you grow your team and things just tend to get better from there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those were cool. Dispersing knowledge, of course, pairing, avoiding over-specialization, all those things, standardize on patterns. Yeah, we did a lot of code walkthroughs and wiki documentation when appropriate. It's not like documenting every single function that we create, but just the things that really matter that are not obvious or that we need some sort of historical tracking of why we've made certain decisions, like design decisions and things like that.
README. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, put it in the README.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'm a much bigger, I'm a big fan now of tools like PlantUML, where you can write out in a text, you could write a text format that makes sense to read and then generate diagrams from that. Not only is that nice and accessible and easy to make, but it is source controllable. It's just a much, much better way of, and at the same time, diagrams do communicate really well. They're excellent for community. I do them all the time. I did one yesterday. I found PlantUML had a Gantt diagram feature that I used for a project proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Still good stuff. So yeah, techniques. Let's see what comes up there. So branch per feature, kind of talked about that, and that's become pretty much the norm over the last several years, right? BDD, TDD. I mean, I know I'm still a huge advocate on those and how to use those and make sure to explain to people the differences. What is TDD? What is BDD? Once you get people understanding what those are, usually you get much easier buy-in into those practices. Design by contract, we talked about. Kanban board. Yeah, dependency injection, good IOC container. I guess depending on the The tech stack that we are using, those are still very applicable. What else? Scrum, yep. Event aggregation, MVVM, composition. I remember those we put in because we were working on the WPF application, and it totally appeals to that, right? And it fits there. I've been noticing, like the last couple of years, I've been doing more like web type of development with like Angular, React, and stuff like that. And even though like in React per se, you don't have dependency injection as is, I wouldn't even be thinking about, because yeah, really dependency injection is a technique, but above that, there is a dependency management. And that to me is still a big thing, because it doesn't matter whether I'm looking at an Angular app, a React app, whatever. I keep seeing people messing up with the dependency management, right? Where the dependencies are all tangled up. Like, no, there's gotta be a way to address this. If this React thing does not have like an IOC container, because that's not how the thing works, there's gotta be a way to manage dependencies. If it does, then we are using it wrong, or we are using the wrong thing. It's either one or the other. All right. Anything to add to this one?
I wonder if we, because like you want to get off by 11:50. I wonder if we should like stop and jump forward to like tools.
Sure.
That's really the stuff that's gonna have changed over time.
Right.
Maybe.
Because as far as techniques, everything that's up here, pretty much still applicable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like our little agile board there, when we didn't have a decent tool to use, it's just like whatever we can put, a backlog in progress and done tracking.
Yeah, but that was nice. That was like a little whiteboard. That was, I think, Dabble or something like that. It got discontinued.
Dabble board or something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Tools. All right. Yeah, that was like the aggregate of the tools. Skype is still around. We are actually using it right now.
Sure.
Well, I guess that Unity that's up there, it's the IOC container, not the gaming development thing. Right? Bitbucket's still around, but not with Mercurial, right?
No. And yeah, and I mean Mercurial lost. I love Mercurial.
Same here.
I still think I will fight anyone that it's a better technology than Git, especially if you've done any work like and how Git works under the hood.
Right.
But yeah, it's not as good.
Right. Yeah, what else? Yeah, Dabbleboard was the one.
Dabbleboard's gone. I do not have a good whiteboarding solution, just shared whiteboarding solution.
Yeah, I don't have one that I would recommend. Like, yes, you have to use that.
I did see a really good. Oh God, let me pull it up from my notes. I did see another good solution recently, which is let me see. Figure out Mural. Yeah, Mural.co.
Oh, I heard of that one like last week, but I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, like I joined a COVID. I don't know if anyone's seen it. I joined a project up COVID, and the product designer on that was like using Mural to flush out ideas and concerns and stuff like that. It was very cool. Like this is nice. It wasn't like you can just draw on it, but it had like very nice workflow around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, I see a time snapper up there. It's funny because like I think 2 weeks ago I wrote a post about how I'm still using time snapper. It's still valuable to me.
I never got into it.
Oh, I love it for like distraction management, or interruption management whenever I get interrupted, right? Because I mean, I try to minimize the chances to be interrupted, like working with Pomodoros and letting other people know that I'm, doing a Pomodoro. So please do not interrupt until I'm done, kind of stuff. But, interruptions still happen. And when they do, we all know that it takes about 25 minutes for people to get back into that zone to catch up. So I use Time Snapper to just go back like the last 5 minutes of whatever I was doing, it replaces what I was doing over those was 5 minutes, and then it gets my mind, jump started into that. Like, oh, that was the context. These were the last steps I was taking before getting interrupted. All right, I know where to go from there. So it's just a little trick to get up to speed quicker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, ReSharper I still use. I haven't used CodeRush since I came back to the .NET space. I've been just sticking with ReSharper. Not to say that when I'm like heavy into like writing code, I do miss CodeRush, because ReSharper still doesn't have some of the things that CodeRush has. That's pretty awesome and useful. But yeah.
I mean, look, I learned Vim bindings. I learned Vim bindings, and that just between that and what LSP provides now, just don't find a lot of the need.
Well, and it's when I do talks on these things, like if I'm doing a talk on ReSharper, I tell people very specifically, look, this is just the tool I'm using, and I'm showing you. So this is the what, right? I'm using. I'm showing you how to use it, but more importantly, I will explain why I use it. So whether you use CodeRush, ReSharper, Vim bindings, whatever the heck it is, make sure you use it wisely, right? Yes. Learn the tool. If you see yourself like, reaching for the mouse to do the most mundane things over and over and over again, automate that. Find shortcuts, establish shortcuts, key bindings, whatever.
I think there is a angle by which that there's an angle by which that is actually extra true for remote development, because if you're into doing stuff like via, for example, like Vim and Tmux, then there's ways where you could do remote programming where it doesn't have to actually send images; it can send keystrokes. Which is very, very cool. It's also something that someone doesn't do, and it's also much harder in other ways because, it can make it harder to pair. I mean, honestly, like I find it sometimes I'm typing so fast that anyone I'm pairing with can't follow.
Right.
I'm just throwing all over the place, and I mean, I can't slow down because that's how fast I'm actually thinking. But like, it's a difficulty I have not made it past yet.
Gotcha.
I'm not way past it.
Sure. All right, let's see what else is up here. Some other tools. Balsamiq, I still use it, depending on what kind of like mock-ups I have to sketch up. Sometimes I just draw on the whiteboard. Sometimes I fall back to Balsamiq, just drag some things around and present that to whoever I need to communicate ideas.
I don't think I use any of these anymore.
Really?
I mean, web sequence diagrams and YUML were cool, but Planned UML has superseded that for me. So I just that locally generate all the stuff I want.
Right.
Dropbox, I prefer not to. Balsamiq is still cool, but now it's harder to use unless you pay for it. And also, again, I can generate mockups in Plant UML from writing text.
Okay.
And then Yammer's been replaced by Slack. Track's been replaced by Jira or whatever the heck you use now. Jing stopped existing.
No, not really, dude. I was gonna say Jing is still like a subset of Snagit. So if I'm using my own computer, either the Mac or the PC, I have my own personal license to Snagit, which is the fully featured. If I'm using a client's computer, then I just install Jing, which is a free version, and it gives me like the main things from screen capture. So I've been recommending to people that's like, if you don't use any other sort of like screen capture tool, use this one because it allows you to annotate.
Last time I looked, like it relied on Flash. Last time I looked at it, especially record any of the video stuff.
Wait, say that again.
You can. It relied on Flash. Last time I looked at it.
I'm not sure. It's a standalone thing.
I don't know, because I remember I just recording stuff and taking a look at my recording because it uploads them into screencast.com, and in there you'd have to have Flash installed to view it.
Oh,
Maybe
so for
that's
video. Okay, for video. I had not been using it for video. I had been using it mostly for screen capture, like static images. Like I want to like take a screenshot and annotate, right? Explain something to somebody and just, send it over. For screen recording, I had not been using it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that was pretty much it, man. That was definitely not bad. 10 years later,
Yeah.
and yeah.
What other new tools have you added to your repertoire?
Man, I should have prepared for that question. Trying to think of it. Of course, I mean, Evernote stays a huge thing on my toolbox. I still use it, like 12 years later. It's like the main tool that I probably use. It's the way I organize everything in life, in work. And if I need to share things with coworkers, I'll probably share it as an Evernote note where I just either share the note if I know that the person also uses Evernote, or just send, generate the link and send to the person so that the person can just open the browser and see the notes and get updates as I update the notes. That to me is still a huge thing. Trying to think what else. Still do my Pomodoros, still big into Scrum.
I use emojis a lot more than I did before.
Use emojis a lot.
I used to be against emojis. I used to be like, man, just write it.
Right?
Yeah, learn to write better to convey emotion, but
Right.
emojis are just so much easier than that.
That is true.
Yeah. Ooh, something else. Yeah, and they become kind of a standard language. Someone's asking about building deployment tools.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. I mean Docker definitely.
Okay.
Though yeah, Docker, but I've really used it primarily for development. And I haven't used it for like the deployment stuff. But just being able to set up like an environment to develop it with Docker is very helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last several years, depending on the client that I'm working at, I've seen TeamCity for sure. I've seen Azure all over the place, GitHub for sure, Docker, yes, Octopus, yes. So all those tools. And I see that there's not like a standard, like everybody uses this, right? But I mean, all the tools, they seem to be pretty solid, and it's which one to use it, more specifically nowadays is like it depends what people are comfortable with, what kind of features they are looking for.
Yeah.
Geez, yeah, I remember back then, like, using cruisecontrol.net to automate builds and stuff like that when that thing, when all that was just starting up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I was typing something else. Let's see what comes up, and then I do have to wrap up in just like a minute or so. Also, NuGet became mainstream. Yeah, very common to share functionality across projects, across teams within the same company. Having a private NuGet feed is pretty common nowadays. Yes, thank you. That was one thing that's when NuGet started.
Yeah, neither of us do C# very much, right?
What's that?
I don't think either of us do C# very much anymore.
I still do, but it's funny that yeah, when NuGet came about, that was the time when I was jumping over to the Ruby on Rails arena, so I didn't get to use much NuGet at the time. And then when I got back to the .NET space in 2016, late 2016, then NuGet was really a thing, and I'm like, well, at least we have that, because previously we didn't have a good situation for that, a good story for that, and it hurt pretty bad. So yeah, cool.
All right.
All right, right. I hope that was helpful to others, and we're gonna have the video up for others to catch up later as well. This was fun, man. It was great.
Yeah.
Reliving some of that, like reviewing some of that and questioning, do those still make sense? How has the world changed since then? All right.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, Claudio has to run. I actually also kind of have to run. I think we'll pick it up next. We'll pick it up next week.
Next week back to 12 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining and asking the questions and contributing. Hope to see you next week.
Yeah. Well,
Take care.
please join our Slack and
Yep.
volunteer to talk.
Absolutely. All right. Guys, take care. Have a good one.